They invited the class loser to the reunion to make fun of him again, but they had no idea he was coming back as a CEO. Before we go any further, pause for just 1 second. Comment where you're watching from. Hit like if you believe comebacks hit harder when they're quiet. Subscribe if you love stories where the past gets exposed, and stay till the end. Because what's about to unfold will leave an entire room frozen in silence. 17 years ago, Jerry Morgan stood in the center of the Crown Ridge High Gym with his shoes soaked, his shirt stained, and his head lowered, not because he was weak, but because the noise was too loud to escape. Laughter crashed into him from every direction. Phones were lifted. Voices overlapped. Someone replayed the moment before it was even over. Jerry had believed the message that night. Someone wants to see you. Someone finally noticed you. What he didn't know was that Donald Harrison, the golden boy, the untouchable one, had already written the ending. They called it a prank. The school called it harmless. Adults called it kids being kids, but humiliation doesn't disappear just because people grow older. The video spread faster than sympathy ever could. Milk, confetti, laughter. A boy standing completely still because moving would have meant breaking. Jerry Morgan vanished after that night. His family moved away. His name faded into a memory people only mentioned when they needed a joke. Until now. Because Crown Ridge sent an invitation. 17-year class reunion. We miss you. Let's catch up. Friendly words. Clean font. A familiar intention hiding underneath. Jerry didn't tear it up. Didn't reply. Didn't smile. He just stared at it long enough for the past to breathe again. No one in Crown Ridge knew that the man reading that invitation no longer lived paycheck to paycheck. No one knew his name, signed contracts worth more than the entire town combined. No one knew he had learned how to survive silence and use it. And absolutely no one was ready for what was coming. But before the reunion, before the exposure, before the moment that would fracture reputations and rewrite history, Jerry Morgan had to meet someone who didn't know his name at all. Crown Ridge hadn't changed. Same cracked sidewalks. Same diner on the corner. Same judgment sitting in the air like fog that never fully lifted. That diner was where Virginia Hill worked. She was clumsy in a way that made people smile instead of judge bumping into chairs, apologizing to tables, laughing at herself before anyone else could. She met Jerry on a quiet afternoon. He sat in the corner booth, shoulders squared, eyes observant, not hiding, not performing, just watching the room like someone measuring distance. Virginia spilled water on the table beside him. Not his, thankfully. Wow, she muttered to herself. Excellent work, Virginia. Truly professional. Jerry smiled. Just a little. And somehow, that small smile shifted everything. They talked about nothing, and somehow about everything. Bad coffee. Small towns. Things people carry longer than they admit. Jerry didn't say who he was. Virginia didn't ask. And for the first time in years, that felt safe. She didn't see a billionaire. Didn't see power. Didn't see status. She saw a man who listened, and for Jerry Morgan, that mattered more than every title he had ever earned. Across town, Donald Harrison was also preparing, because the reunion wasn't about memories, it was theater, and he was planning a performance he believed would remind everyone exactly who still mattered. What no one knew yet, not Virginia, not the crowd, not even Donald, was that the boy they thought they could humiliate again was no longer a boy at all, and what comes next will test loyalty, expose cruelty, and prove that silence, when wielded right, can be louder than applause. Like, subscribe, share, and comment where you're watching from, because this story is only getting started, and what happens next changes everything. The diner bell rang the way it always did, sharp, tired, familiar. Jerry Morgan paused just inside the doorway, letting the sound settle. The place smelled like burnt coffee, old vinyl seats, and something fried that had probably been fried too many times. Crown Ridge's diner hadn't changed. Not really. It was still the kind of place where people didn't whisper because there was nothing new to protect. He took a booth near the corner. Back to the wall. Habit. Not fear, awareness. Jerry folded his hands loosely on the table and watched the room without staring. A couple arguing in low voices. 2 teenagers scrolling on their phones. An older man stirring sugar into coffee that had long gone cold. Life. Moving in small, unremarkable loops. For the first time since coming back to town, Jerry felt something loosen in his chest. No one here knew his name. No one was measuring him against who he used to be or who he'd become. He was just another man in a booth. And then she nearly collided with a chair. Sorry, oh wow, okay. That one moved, Virginia Hill muttered, steadying herself with a hand on the counter like it had personally betrayed her. Jerry's mouth twitched before he could stop it. Virginia didn't notice him yet. She was too busy apologizing to the chair, then to the counter, then briefly to the air, as if it had been involved in the incident. She straightened, smoothed her apron, and took a breath that clearly said, "Reset." Then she grabbed a tray and turned. That's when she saw him. For half a second, her brain stalled. Not because he was intimidating, because he was quiet. There was something about the way he sat still but alert, like he'd learned how to take up space without demanding it. No phone in his hand, no restless tapping, just watching, not judging. Virginia blinked once, then twice. Okay, Virginia. It's a customer. A human one. Not a statue. Not a mirage. Walk normally. She took 3 confident steps toward his table, and promptly spilled water. Not on him. Thankfully. It sloshed onto the empty seat across from him, ran toward the edge of the table, and dripped onto the floor with a sound that felt much louder than it actually was. Virginia froze. Oh. Wow. She stared at the puddle like it had personally embarrassed her. That's impressive. I didn't even trip this time. Jerry looked at the water, then back up at her. You missed me, he said calmly. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you for noticing. That was very intentional. His smile appeared then. Small. Unassuming. But it changed the temperature of the space between them. Virginia cleared her throat. Let me just... She grabbed a stack of napkins, crouched, wiped the floor with the intensity of someone trying to erase evidence. We like to keep things exciting here. I can tell, Jerry said. That smile again. Just a little wider. Virginia straightened, finally meeting his eyes. Can I get you something? Coffee's coffee. Food's edible. Most days. Coffee. Coffee's fine, he said. Black. She nodded, then paused. You're very brave. Why's that? Trusting diner coffee without backup plans. He chuckled softly, and something in Virginia's chest did an unexpected flip. She turned toward the counter, nearly walked into another server, corrected course at the last second, and muttered, Nailed it. Under her breath, Jerry watched her go. He didn't mean to. But something about her energy, unpolished, unguarded, pulled his attention without effort. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to impress. She just existed, unapologetically herself. It was disarming. When she came back with the coffee, she moved slower this time. Focused. Determined not to repeat the incident. The cup made it safely to the table. Virginia exhaled. Victory. Jerry lifted the mug slightly. Cheers. She hesitated, then smiled. I'm Virginia. Jerry. No last name, no titles, just a name. She leaned against the edge of the booth, not quite sitting, not quite standing. You're not from around here. Is it that obvious? She tilted her head, studying him not rudely, just curiously. You look like someone who listens more than he talks. That usually means you learned somewhere else. Jerry considered that. Maybe. She nodded, satisfied. Crown Ridge talks a lot. He glanced around the diner. I've noticed. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just space. Virginia filled it by asking, So what brings you to town, Jerry, who listens more than he talks? Jerry looked down at his coffee. The steam curled upward, then disappeared. I needed to come back, he said finally. She didn't press. Didn't ask the obvious follow-up. Instead, she said, That's usually reason enough. Something eased in his chest at that. They talked in pieces. About nothing important. About things that somehow mattered anyway. Bad coffee. Small towns. How some places hold on to you longer than they should. Jerry avoided specifics without lying. Virginia talked openly, laughed easily, apologized too much for things that didn't need apologies. At one point, she knocked over a salt shaker while gesturing. It rolled across the table and fell to the floor. She stared at it. "I swear I'm not usually this destructive." Jerry raised an eyebrow. "You've apologized to furniture twice. 3 times. She corrected. "The door outside and I are currently not on speaking terms." He laughed, really laughed this time. The sound surprised him as much as it did her. Virginia blinked. "Oh, that's nice." "What is?" "That laugh. It sounds like you don't do it often." Jerry's smile faded just a touch. "I guess I don't." She noticed the way his shoulders stayed tense even when he relaxed, the way his eyes drifted toward the window like he was checking distances. The quiet weight he carried without advertising it. She didn't see power, she saw sadness, and that mattered. Jerry finished his coffee, slower than necessary. He didn't want the moment to end, but he wasn't ready to let it become more. When he stood, Virginia straightened instinctively. "Already?" He nodded. "I should go." She hesitated, then said, "You're welcome back anytime. I mean, if you want. Not like obligated." He smiled at that. "I'd like that." He left cash on the table more than necessary and turned toward the door. Virginia watched him walk out, something tightening in her chest. It wasn't disappointment. It was curiosity. The diner bell rang again as it closed behind him. A beat passed. Then another. From a nearby booth, an older woman leaned toward her friend and whispered, "Did you see who was just here?" Virginia glanced over. "Who?" The woman lowered her voice. "Jerry Morgan." Virginia's breath caught. The name hit her like a dropped plate. Jerry Morgan. She turned back toward the door too late. The booth was empty. The coffee cup cold. And suddenly, the quiet man in the corner didn't feel so simple anymore. Stay with this story because the truth is closer than it seems. Crown Ridge talked when it thought no one was listening. It talked in the diner booths where vinyl cracked with age, in the line at the pharmacy, in the hush between sips of coffee that had long gone cold. The town talked the way old places do, softly, casually, as if the past were just another story people told to pass the time. Virginia Hill heard it first while wiping the counter. "Did you hear they're doing a reunion?" one woman said, lowering her voice like secrets mattered here. "The 17-year one?" Another replied, "Donald Harrison's organizing it, of course." A pause, a clink of spoon against mug, and he invited him. Virginia's hand stilled. "Who?" someone asked. The woman hesitated, then sighed. "You know, the boy from that night." Another voice chimed in, softer. "Oh, that poor boy. I hope he doesn't come." "Me too." Virginia pretended to scrub the same spot on the counter, her ears burning. The boy from that night. She carried plates to the sink, her mind racing. Names surfaced and disappeared. She told herself not to pry. Crown Ridge was built on stories that grew teeth when you touched them, but when her shift ended, she didn't go straight home. She stopped by the bulletin board near the diner's back hall, the one that still held yellowed flyers and announcements like time had forgotten it. There it was, taped crookedly among lost cat notices and church bake sales. Crown Ridge High 17-year reunion, hosted by Donald Harrison. All alumni welcome. The words all alumni felt heavier than they should have. Virginia took a picture with her phone. She didn't know why yet, only that she needed it. That evening, she sat on her couch with her laptop open and typed Crown Ridge High graduation prank into the search bar. At first, nothing helpful came up. Old forum posts. Broken links. A few comments buried under unrelated videos. Then she found a name. A retired teacher who'd posted a vague apology years later. A local blog entry that had been deleted but quoted elsewhere. A thread titled, "The Milkshake Incident Locked, Archived, Untouched for Over a Decade." Virginia read until her eyes hurt. She learned how the prank had been planned weeks in advance. How a fake message had been sent. How the gym lights had been dimmed just enough to make the screen glow brighter. How laughter had drowned out the sound of a boy trying to breathe through shock. She learned that the video had been taken down eventually, but not before it spread. And she learned the name. Jerry Morgan. Her chest tightened. She closed the laptop and stared at the wall. The quiet suddenly too loud. The quiet man in the corner booth. The careful way he'd watched the room. The tension that never fully left his shoulders. Virginia stood abruptly, grabbed her jacket, and stepped outside for air. Across town, in a garage that pretended to be an office, Donald Harrison was also thinking about the reunion. Except for him, it wasn't a memory. It was a stage. Donald stood in front of a mirror propped against a stack of boxes, adjusting the collar of a blazer that still had the tag tucked inside. He practiced smiles, practiced pauses. This time, he said to no one, "It'll be clean, classy." Bryce and Tanner sat on folding chairs behind him, nodding on cue. "Big screen," Bryce said. "Lights," Tanner added a second too late. Donald waved them quiet. "I've already booked the hall. Sound system, too. We'll open with nostalgia photos, music, people feeling good." He smiled. Then the surprise. He reached over to a laptop perched on a workbench and clicked open a folder labeled Memories. Inside were files he'd kept longer than most people kept grudges. He leaned closer to the screen, eyes shining. People love callbacks. Back at the diner, Virginia didn't sleep much. The next day, she asked Marlene, the owner, about that night. Marlene sighed and leaned against the counter. "I was younger then. Thought it was just stupid kids doing stupid things. Took me years to realize how wrong that was." "Did anyone stop it?" Virginia asked. Marlene shook her head. "Not fast enough." Virginia found Eddie next, the cook who'd been here forever. He didn't look surprised by her questions. "I remember him," Eddie said, voice rough. "Quiet kid. Always polite. Didn't deserve any of it." "What happened after?" Virginia asked. Eddie shrugged. "Family left. Town moved on." Virginia clenched her hands. "Did anyone ever apologize?" Eddie met her gaze. "Not the ones who should have." That night, she searched again, this time for Jerry Morgan alone. Nothing personal came up, but then she found articles that didn't mention Crown Ridge at all. A tech company founded 12 years ago. A CEO who rarely gave interviews. A face that looked familiar in a way that made her heart stutter. Jerry Morgan. The picture was older than the man she'd met, but the eyes were the same. Virginia closed the laptop slowly. Curiosity didn't live in her chest anymore. Anger did. She thought about the way the women in the diner had spoken, soft, sympathetic, distant. As if time had dulled the edges enough to make the story safe to tell. As if the boy hadn't carried it every day since. She grabbed her phone and opened the reunion event page again. Her thumb hovered. Across town, Jerry Morgan sat alone in a hotel room that smelled faintly of detergent and unfamiliarity. He stared at the same invitation he hadn't responded to yet. He thought of the diner. Of Virginia's laugh. Of how easily she'd talk to him without needing to know anything else. His phone buzzed. A message. "Are you really going?" Unknown number. Jerry exhaled. "Yes," he typed back. On Virginia's screen, the reunion page refreshed. A new notification appeared. Jerry Morgan interested. Her breath caught. She didn't hesitate this time. Virginia clicked the button. Interested. The word felt too small for what it meant. She set the phone down, pulse racing. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't a party. And whatever Donald Harrison thought he was planning, he wasn't the only one preparing anymore. Because what comes next isn't a party, it's a setup. They met again by accident. At least, that's what Virginia told herself when she stepped out of the diner after her shift and nearly collided with Jerry on the sidewalk. He caught her elbow gently before she could lose her balance, his touch brief, careful like he was afraid of taking too much space in her world. "Hi," she said, a little breathless. "Hi," he answered, the same quiet warmth in his voice. For a moment, neither of them moved. The town hummed around them, cars passing, a door slamming somewhere, the low murmur of people who had known each other too long. Crown Ridge didn't pause for anyone. It never had. "I was just walking," Virginia said, gesturing vaguely down the street. "Thinking." Jerry nodded. "Me too." They stood there, awkward and unhurried, until Virginia laughed softly. "This is ridiculous. Do you want to walk together? Or do we just keep pretending we're not clearly heading in the same direction?" A corner of Jerry's mouth lifted. "Together sounds good." They started toward the square, their steps naturally falling into rhythm. The late afternoon sun painted the sidewalks gold, softening edges that usually felt too sharp. Jerry hadn't planned to talk. He'd promised himself he wouldn't, But Crown Ridge had a way of pulling things loose just by existing. They passed the old movie theater first. The marquee was empty now, letters missing. But Jerry slowed anyway. "Used to sneak in through the side door," he said without thinking. Virginia glanced at him. "Really?" He nodded. "Cheapest escape I could afford." She smiled, not teasing. "What was your favorite?" "Anything where the town disappeared for a while." She didn't ask more, she just walked beside him. They crossed the street to the park, the one with rusted swings and benches carved with initials that outlived the people who carved them. Jerry stopped near the tree line. "I used to sit here after school," he said, "when going home felt too loud." Virginia sat on the bench, patting the space beside her. He joined her, shoulders tense at first, then easing as the silence settled. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," Jerry said quietly. "I left because I couldn't breathe here anymore." Virginia kept her eyes on the path ahead. "What made it so hard?" He hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "Being remembered as someone I wasn't anymore. Being trapped in a moment everyone else thought was funny." She felt anger spark sharp and immediate, but she didn't interrupt. "I thought if I went far enough," he continued, "if I built something big enough, it would erase it. But success doesn't do that. It just makes the silence louder when it finally catches up." Virginia turned to him then. "You didn't deserve what they did." He looked at her, surprised not by the words, but by how certain she sounded. "I know that now," he said. It took a while. They sat there longer than either of them meant to, watching shadows stretch across the grass. As they stood to leave, Jerry brushed past her, close enough that she caught the faint scent of soap and something sharper restraint, maybe. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to the space between them. It felt like a question neither of them was ready to answer. Jerry stepped back first. "I should go." Virginia nodded, though she didn't want him to. "Yeah." Before he turned away, he added, "I'm glad you're going to the reunion." Her pulse jumped. "You noticed." "I did." There was more he could have said, more she wanted to ask. But he left it there, walking off with the same quiet care he carried everywhere. That night, Virginia lay awake, replaying the walk, the bench, the almost. Something about Jerry felt unfinished, like a story told in fragments. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unfamiliar number lit the screen. "Tell your friend Jerry to be careful. Some people don't forget." Virginia sat up, heart pounding. She stared at the message, then at the dark ceiling above her. Careful wasn't enough. Whatever Jerry was hiding, whatever he hadn't told her yet, she could feel it pressing closer. Heavy as a storm gathering over a town that remembered too much. Don't blink because the reveal is coming. The reunion hall smelled like fresh polish and old memories. Someone had tried very hard to make it feel important. Strings of warm lights draped across the ceiling. A rented sound system hummed softly, cycling through songs everyone pretended not to remember loving. At the far end of the room, a massive screen glowed blue idle, patient waiting for its cue. Donald Harrison stood beneath it like a conductor before an orchestra. He adjusted his jacket for the third time, checking his reflection in the dark glass of the screen. Tonight mattered. Tonight was proof. Proof that time hadn't changed what it counted. Proof that he still knew how to control a room. "Okay," he said, clapping his hands once. "Run it again." Bryce tapped at the laptop. The slideshow began class photos, football games, prom nights. Laughter rippled across the room as early arrivals pointed themselves out, reminisced loudly, filled the space with noise. Donald smiled. This was the easy part. He imagined the moment clearly. The doors opening. The pause. The recognition. The shift in the room when everyone remembered that night. He imagined himself stepping forward, microphone in hand, owning the narrative like he always had. He imagined Jerry Morgan standing there again, smaller this time, quieter, caught in a memory he could never escape. Donald's chest warmed with anticipation. Across town, Virginia paced her living room, phone pressed tight to her ear. It rang, and rang. "Come on," she whispered, checking the time. "Pick up." She'd tried calling Jerry twice already. No answer. A text sat unread on her screen, sent 10 minutes ago and growing heavier by the second. "Please call me. Something's wrong." She grabbed her jacket, keys jangling as her hands shook. She didn't know what she'd say if he answered. only that she needed to say it before it was too late. Back at the hall, the crowd thickened. Old faces hugged with stiff smiles. Conversations overlapped, loud and shallow. People drifted toward the bar, toward the screen, toward anything that distracted them from the faint unease they couldn't quite name. Someone glanced at the doors. "Is he coming?" a woman asked, half curious, half nervous. Donald heard it. He pretended not to. "He always liked being late," Donald said smoothly, stepping into the space with practiced charm. Laughter followed, thin, uncertain. The screen flickered briefly as Bryce adjusted a cable. Donald shot him a look sharp enough to cut. "Careful," Donald hissed. "Not yet." Bryce nodded, swallowing. All set. The screen steadied. The blue glow returned. Minutes passed. The music softened. Conversations ebbed, then resumed, then ebbed again. People kept glancing toward the doors. Virginia pushed through the crowd, breathless, scanning faces. She spotted Donald near the front, his posture confident, his smile rehearsed. Her stomach dropped. She tried calling Jerry again. Straight to voicemail. She typed fast. "Don't come in yet. Please, just wait." The message delivered. No reply. Donald checked his watch. The moment was stretching longer than he liked, but anticipation was its own kind of power. "All right," he said, lifting the microphone. The sound system crackled, and the room quieted instinctively. "I think we're all here." A lie. Everyone knew it. Donald smiled wider. 17 years. Can you believe it? Time flies when you're living your best life. Scattered laughter. "This town shaped us," he continued. "Some of us more than others." Virginia's nails dug into her palm. Donald gestured casually toward the screen. "We've got something special lined up tonight. A little throwback." The blue glow brightened. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. The doors stayed closed. Silence crept in, not complete, but heavy enough to notice. It stretched, taut as a wire pulled too tight. Virginia pushed forward another step. "Stop," she said, louder than she meant to. Donald turned, surprised, annoyance flashing across his face before he masked it. "Virginia, right? Relax. We're just getting started." The screen hummed. Virginia looked around desperately, hoping, praying to see Jerry's familiar silhouette, his calm presence cutting through the chaos. Nothing. The doors didn't move. Donald's smile faltered, just for a second. He adjusted his grip on the microphone. "Running late, I guess," the crowd murmured. Then, a sound, not loud, just the soft click of a latch. Every head turned. The doors began to open. This is the moment everything changes. The doors opened slowly. Not with a bang. Not with drama. Just enough for the light from the hallway to spill across the polished floor. And then Jerry Morgan stepped inside. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hesitating. A tailored suit framed his shoulders, clean lines, quiet confidence. Not flashy, not loud. The kind of presence that didn't ask for attention but pulled it anyway. The room changed instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. Laughter collapsed into coughs and swallowed breaths. Every head turned. Someone whispered, "Is that? No way. That's him?" Donald's smile froze. For a split second, panic flickered across his face, raw and unfiltered, before he forced it back into place. He straightened, lifted his chin, tightened his grip on the microphone like it could steady him. Jerry walked forward. Each step echoed louder than the music ever had. Virginia felt her chest tighten as he passed her. He didn't look at her, not because he didn't see her, but because he was focused on something ahead, something he had carried for 17 years. Jerry stopped at the center of the room. He didn't stand beneath the screen. He didn't face the crowd. He turned slowly and looked straight at Donald Harrison. "Donald," Jerry said. The microphone picked up his voice without him touching it. "Calm. Even. Clear. I hear you prepared something for me." The screen behind Donald flickered. "Just once." Donald swallowed. "Jerry, this is just a reunion. Don't be dramatic." Jerry tilted his head slightly. "You rented a screen, tested the lights, and cued a video you've kept for 17 years. A ripple moved through the room. Donald laughed too quickly. "People like nostalgia." "This isn't nostalgia," Jerry said. "It's cruelty." The word landed hard. Someone near the back shifted uncomfortably. Someone else looked away. Jerry didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse wildly. He named things the way people do when they're no longer afraid. You told me someone wanted to see me, he continued. You told me I mattered. Then you turned it into entertainment. Donald shook his head. It was a joke. We were kids. Jerry nodded once. And you never stopped being one. Gasps scattered through the crowd. Donald's face flushed red. You don't get to come back here and rewrite history. I'm not rewriting it, Jerry said. I'm ending it. He turned slightly and reached behind the screen. A cable disconnected with a soft click. The screen went dark. No video. No replay. No laughter. Just silence. The kind that pressed against eardrums and forced people to feel what they'd avoided for years. Jerry faced the crowd now. I didn't come back for revenge, he said. I came back because running doesn't heal anything. He paused. I built a life. I learned who I am without your laughter defining me, and I don't need you to see it for it to be real. People stared at him, not with mockery, not with curiosity, but with something closer to respect. Donald looked small beneath the dark screen. His blazer seemed cheaper now. His confidence drained, leaving only noise. This was supposed to be my night, Donald snapped. You think you're better than us now? Jerry met his eyes. I think I'm done letting you decide who I am. There was nothing Donald could say to that. Jerry turned away. No bow. No victory speech. No demand for applause. He walked toward the doors as quietly as he'd entered. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Virginia ran after him, because the hardest conversations happen after the applause. Outside the hall, the night felt cooler than it had any right to be. The door closed behind Jerry with a muted thud, sealing in the noise, the whispers, the moment that would echo long after he was gone. For a few seconds, he just stood there under the yellow glow of the parking lot lights, breathing like someone relearning how. Footsteps hurried behind him. Jerry, wait! He turned as Virginia reached him. Breathless, hair loose from where it had been pinned, eyes bright with something between relief and worry. You okay? She asked. He considered the question carefully. Then he nodded. Yeah, I think I am. They stood there together, the distance between them small but intentional. From inside the hall, the murmur of voices rose and fell, already reshaping the story, already deciding what tonight would mean. Jerry glanced back at the building just once, then looked away. I didn't come back to prove anything, he said quietly. Not to them. Not to myself. Virginia tilted her head. Then why did you come? He exhaled, the breath long and honest. Because I didn't want to keep running from a place that no longer had power over me. She stepped closer. And now? Now I know it doesn't. Virginia smiled, not wide, not dramatic, just enough. Good. They walked a few steps in silence, the sound of gravel underfoot grounding, real. The town buzzed behind them, phones already out, rumors already forming. Someone laughed too loudly, someone else argued. The night carried it all away. Virginia slipped her hand into his. Jerry paused, then laced his fingers with hers like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't see a CEO in there, she said softly. I saw a man who finally stopped letting other people define him. That's who I wanted you to see, he replied. They reached the edge of the lot, where the streetlights thinned and the town opened into quieter roads. For the first time since returning, Jerry felt light, untethered from the version of himself he'd outgrown. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then again, he didn't check it. Media will come, he said. People will dig. Some won't like what they find. Virginia squeezed his hand. New enemies? Probably. She laughed under her breath. Good. I've always wanted a life that isn't boring. He looked at her, surprised, and something warm settled in his chest. There will be challenges. I know. Real ones. I'm still here. They kept walking. Leaving the hall, the town. The noise behind them, not running, not hiding, just choosing a different direction. At the corner, Jerry stopped and turned to face Crown Ridge one last time. The streets were the same, the buildings unchanged, but he wasn't. Ready? Virginia asked. He nodded. Yeah. They walked on together, and for the first time, Jerry Morgan left Crown Ridge without carrying it with him. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe for stories where power meets truth. Share it with someone who believes healing is a choice. And comment where you're watching from, because what comes next will test love, identity, and the cost of being seen.